Welcome back. Welcome back, Jeevan here. We're here with another episode of the Steady Trade podcast, and this one is one that has been eagerly, I would say, anticipated. Like
is that like the eagle, like the bird?
It's Eagle Eye. Also, Eagle Eye Cherry is a singer that sang "Save Tonight," but absolutely random. Did you ever hear Eagle Eye Cherry "Save Tonight"? It was a beautiful song. You must have had a glass of wine with your wife and told her that you loved her to that song.
It doesn't ring a bell, but it doesn't mean I didn't hear it. It doesn't ring a bell. Why don't you sing a little bit for me?
Honestly, I'm gonna. Right, here we go. Only because I've had a good day today. It goes, darling, close the curtains, 'cause all we need is candlelight, you and me, and a bottle of wine.
Oh, yep. Okay, yep.
Day, night, fight Tim Bowen's break of dawn, come tomorrow. Tim Bowen's chopping wood. He's hunting in the woods. And he's gonna catch some deers. Save tonight, because the light's gone tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Actually, I'm curious because I've posted funny videos about that. Did you intentionally or unintentionally say catch some deers?
Catch some deers?
Yep.
Nah, totally unintentionally. Tim, I'm not that clever.
But
if that's an intelligent joke, I don't get it.
No, it's a very, very common joke in the hunting community. But we can talk about it another time. So anyway, let us know what you've been so eagerly anticipating.
Eagle Eye. I mean, there's been a lot of requests about shorting, and I'm not talking about short hair. I'm talking about shorting stocks. And when we talk about shorting stocks, we talk about stocks that are going down. But I thought you can't talk about stocks going down on the short side without talking about stocks going up on the long side. So I thought maybe we'll put together some sort of mini-pod series where we talk about the basics of shorting, identify some patterns, which is something that we've never done before. We've never give the audience something that they can literally take away on the long side and the short side, 3-part series. And then we'll talk about the best between shorting and longing. And then, my friend, we will talk about which is the best approach to take in penny stocks. And I think you already know the answer. I think it's the short side, but you've gone the long side. I don't know why.
Actually, just real quick, yeah, and no, it's a great topic, and we've had a lot of requests for this, which is something valuable to know. I mean, even if you are a bull, even if you are a long-only trader, you still need to have a grasp of short selling and the psychology and the approach of short selling, because a lot of these stocks, one of the reasons that they make such great longs is because of the fact that they get quote unquote loaded with shorts. And that's what can make the explosive moves to the upside. So even if you have no desire to short, you still need to understand it and understand the operations of it. So what I'm going to start with before we kind of get going, Stephen built a great looking slide deck. So if you're listening to the audio on your phone, keep in mind you can go to SteadyTrade.com. We'll make a point to embed some of these visuals. And then you can also, on the Steady Trade website, you can go to the YouTube video and you can probably kind of fast forward through. So we'll do our best to explain the charts and the patterns. But again, if you're listening on iTunes, you can go to the website, you can go to YouTube and see this stuff. So,
but we'll explain it as clear as a vivid eagle flying through the night sky. I mean, which is not very clear because it's dark, but we'll be
that analogy failed miserably.
That was a horrendous analogy.
So what I want to start out with before we get started is just, and I know I say a brief introduction and I tend to get a little wordy, but I do want to give a basic explanation of what short selling is, because it is commonly misunderstood. The idea behind it is you can profit when stocks go down. It is not illegal. It is not unethical. It has been a part of the stock market since the very beginning. If you listen to one of our most popular episodes, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator with Jesse Livermore, a lot of his trades were on the short side, and that was in the teens and the 20s, 19 teens and 20s. So it's been around forever. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing illegal. There's nothing unethical, even though you'll hear it explained that way quite frequently. But the idea behind short selling is you can borrow shares from your broker not all stocks, but many stocks, you can borrow these shares. You pay interest, you pay fees, but typically they're very nominal. And which, when you borrow these shares, it gives you the ability to sell them before you buy them back. Now, I know a lot of you are like, what? That doesn't make any sense, Tim. You said it wrong. No, I said it right. You could borrow these. Confused. Yeah, especially for a newbie. So if you're confused, don't feel bad. Once you borrow these shares, and again, you pay a small fee, the interest rate varies, locate fees, etc. You then can sell them and take a negative position. So if you short 1,000 shares of Steven's stock today, HRTX, you would actually see in your brokerage account negative 1,000 shares. Then let's assume the trade works. The stock continues to drop. You then buy those shares back, which gives you a zero position. So you buy back 1,000 shares at a lower price equals a profit. So if you sell 1,000 at 30 and you buy 1,000 back at 29, you net the difference. You made $1,000 on that short. The easiest way to understand it is you're still buying, you're still selling. You're just reversing the order of the timeline. You're shorting, selling, then you buy those back, and you end up with zero shares. Just like if you bought 1,000 at 29 and sold them at 30, you're still doing the same thing. You're still collecting the same premium. You're just flip-flopping the timeline.
I feel like that was a beautiful explanation. I feel like there's a song in there somewhere. I think it's like, I'm free falling upside down, something like that. I don't know.
That's what you want when you're short, is a free falling stock. That's for sure.
You want a free fall, but upside down, because you want your account to go up, but you want the short to go down. But we'll kind of address some of that in the deck that I've prepared, so we'll jump straight into it. I will just jump onto the first slide. I'll put some GIFs in. I hope you like GIFs.
I tend to look at GIFs, but I avoid GIF because it's got a bunch of sugar in it. There's too much sugar in GIF.
The thing is, though, I thought GIF was a washing powder anyway. But do you?
No, it's peanut butter.
A GIF. Do you call it a GIF?
Yes.
A GIF is like a gift that you get at Christmas. It's got presents and they're wrapped up in silver wrapping.
No, there's a T on the end of gift.
A GIF. A GIF is a gift without the T on the end. A GIF is a dynamic piece of moving content.
How about this? You've got some images. How's that? So.
All right, we've got some. Okay, let's just get into it because I've had a crazy day today. Let's get into it. So this is a Jeevan's guide to short selling, and I've made a little bit of a joke here, so don't take it too seriously. But Jeevan's guide to blowing up your account, short selling, the easiest and quickest way to self-destruct like an atomic bomb. That's the title of my slides, because today the podcast is all going to be about how to blow up your account as fast as you possibly can.
Well, and actually, that's it's a very good point.
Good idea.
Because another thing that many new traders struggle with understanding is there's a very, very important point in Steven's introductory slide here. Remember, if you buy 1,000 shares, not that I would ever recommend this, but say you have $1,000 account and you buy 1,000 shares of a $1 stock. The worst possible thing that can happen is that stock goes to zero and you lose $1,000. That's the worst possible. With short selling, you have unlimited potential losses based on your margin. So
hold it. There are so many opportunities for these specific sections.
Oh, I guess I should have actually looked at your slide deck before I started.
You did not look at my slide deck, did you? You see, it's such a good slide deck. You didn't even read it.
I scrolled through it really quickly. I did look at it. I just didn't pay very close attention. So
you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. And I'm
all right. So guide me through this podcast.
Okay, so Jeevan's guide to blowing up your short selling account. A very quick disclaimer, guys, because I know that we need to give disclaimers as part of being professional about the podcast. So Stephen is professional when it comes to blowing up his account and has much experience blowing up a number of accounts. Stephen can guarantee to help you blow up your account too if you follow his instructions closely. If you want to achieve results faster than estimated, you can go all in on every trade and just walk away and don't look at the screen. This strategy only works when you totally and are completely under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Tinder is recommended for viewing at all times, or Grindr if you swing both ways. No disrespect, no offense. I love gay people and everything.
I do want to make another small disclaimer that when Stephen mentions blowing up his account, it isn't blowing it up in a good way. Anytime you hear traders talk about blowing up an account, that's typically when you take an account from XYZ to 0 or less than 0 in some situations. So it is not blowing up like Jay-Z or something. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that disclaimer there and say that if you want to blow up and live in Traders Anonymous with me, then I am right here. So that's the disclaimer. But let's get to the basics. We kind of addressed some of them. What is short selling? Tim, is there anything you want to finish off? You talked about sell high, buy low, the opposite of buying low, selling high. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. I don't think you're going to find it's very hard.
Well, that's kind of how I typically approach just talking about things.
A 5-year-old with Chester.
So I think I did a pretty good job in the introduction, but again, I think one of the best ways to do it is, a lot of charting software, including StocksToTrade, when you enter and exit a trade, we'll put a green arrow for the buy and a red arrow for the sell. So a lot of the times you'll see a short and say he'll short up high. I'm doing a high hand gesture now. That's your red. That's your entry. And then later in the day, you're buying those shares back. Again, assuming this trade worked. You're buying them back at a lower price. So if you sold high, remember in stock trading or cars or baseball cards, whatever it is, you want to buy low and sell high. So the fifth or the 5-year-old explanation is you're still buying low and selling high, assuming the trade works. You're just reversing the timeline. And this actually works. And I've done this on webinars before. If you print out a stock chart and basically hold it up to the light, you turn it, flip the page around and look at it up to the light, it makes sense because now that chart the timeline's reversed and the buy and the sells are there. And I've actually helped people and said, oh, that makes it click because now I get the fact I'm still buying low and selling high. I'm just reversing the timeline.
But what was interesting for me was where do these shares come from? And these shares come from like longer term investors, right? Because that's what confused me initially.
Yeah. So, a common issue, there's many issues with shorting is a lot of the time it's difficult to obtain the borrow from your broker. Some brokers are better than others. And even if you have a very good broker for short selling, doesn't guarantee you'll get borrows on every stock, because what can happen is if the float is closely controlled, they can be very, very difficult to borrow from any broker. And Stephen's right. So basically what happens is if I'm a hedge fund, if I'm a long-term investor, I'm Warren Buffett, just as an example, and I've got Warren says, you buy the stocks and you forget about them. You hold them for years. So what Warren can do, or other big investors or institutions, they have no intention of selling these shares anytime soon. So they will lend them out via the broker and collect fees and interest. So if I bought Coca-Cola like Warren Buffett did, and I've got no intention of selling it for 20, 30 years or longer, why not lend those shares out and get a killer interest rate? Some of these stocks, that we short, they have like a 300% annual interest rate. So you're collecting like 1% a day if you lend these shares out. So it's very lucrative. If I'm a long-term shareholder, I got no intention of selling, to lend those shares out. So that's where the quote unquote inventory comes from.
No, I like it. And I'm thinking I'm a 5-year-old, so I'm trying to think in a 5-year-old's perspective, how would I short sell if I was 5?
So let's think about if I've got a bunch of Legos and I've got 4 kids. So you're 5 years old. I got a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I've got no intention of selling these Legos at any point. So I would lend them to son number 1, Steven, the worst kid I ever had, because I know that eventually he'll hand them down to Joe and Jim and Jack. So why would I go buy Legos for everybody if I can just lend them to Steven? And then when Steven's old enough and smart enough to play with something else than Legos, which would probably be 15 to 20 years, then stocks. I could hand those down to his younger siblings.
Just know that I'm going to be a good kid, and I'm going to be not just a good kid, but the best kid, and I'll be the best man at someone's wedding one day, or the better man. But I think we've explained what is short selling. So the next kind of topic is, how does a humanoid short sell? Is it particularly easy to do? Yeah. So I mean, how does one humanoid, and I'm using a basic primitive evolution term there just for dramatic effect, how does a humanoid learn to short sell?
Well, first of all, I would never recommend using real money on your first short. Whether you do it with StocksToTrade has a paper trading module which allows you to simulate trades. You could spreadsheet, you could do it with an index card. But number 1, please never make your first short sell an actual short sell with real money, because they can get scary very, very, very fast. So whether it's a paper trade or a spreadsheet, do it a few times mechanically before you actually put real money on the line. And then, go ahead.
No, I'll say we'll get one of the next sections is the dangers of short selling, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But just comes straight to mind, when you're buying, you're anticipating that mad influx of volume, that mad rush of there not being many sellers and a lot of buyers, and the buyers overtake control and the price ramps because you're expecting that, you're hoping for that. But when you're short selling, it's on the back of your head because you're hoping that it's going to crack, the price is going to go down. So you're not thinking, what if this stock squeezes and ramps? And I mean, that's what you're talking about. And that's when short squeezes can happen, and they can come out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, what we commonly run into is, everything we talked about in season 1, which I highly recommend. We got a lot into catalysts, good chart patterns, and everything. So what happens quite frequently is, and when we call short squeeze, it is exactly that. A lot of the times, you'll have big traders, hedge funds, whatever, they will intentionally just skip the bid up on a stock because they know they can induce panic selling. So I think did you have a slide about the unlimited losses coming up? Because we got to talk about that fear.
Yeah, no, we've got the basically how do you short sell, and I think you've kind of covered it already. It's you sell before you buy, and generally with a number of brokers, they'll either have they'll have a short sell button and a cover button, or you will literally sell and buy. So I think
and keep in mind, you do need a margin account to short sell. So and now margin is dangerous. We recommend not going into margin on steady trade. We're steady traders for a reason. But just so you know, if you have a quote unquote or normal or a cash account or a retirement account, if you can trade in your IRA, but you cannot short sell in cash accounts or retirement accounts. You need a margin account, which means more paperwork and more risk. So if you're listening to this episode and you get all fired, which I do not recommend getting all fired up and shorting something, but if you go log into your brokerage account and you do not have the ability keep in mind, you'd have to contact them and say, hey, I want a margin account. You'd have to fill out some more paperwork and proceed from there.
Okay, so let's look at the next topic. We've basically got, what is the 250 rule?
So the 250 rule, and is that a wombat? What is that thing?
I don't even know. It's just a GIF. It's kind of cool though, right?
So the 250 rule comes into play a lot for smaller traders because the biggest stock, the greatest setup you can ever look for as a short seller is the pump and dump. The stock that gets manipulated, that gets pushed up, say from 10 cents to 50 cents or something, or up to $1. So this is that up.
They're not around that often anymore. They're never around that often though anymore. Eh? We don't see pump and dumps that often. No. We have to work a lot. We work harder for our money now, I think. Would you agree or no?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's you talk about, at some point in the future we'll have Tim Grattani on, and Tim Grattani made his, kind of really got his start in his career 2009, 2010 ish trading pump and dumps, and they'll be back. They always come back. But right now they are very hard to come by. And the dilemma is, if you do find a manipulated stock, they've gotten smarter. Go back to a little while ago when I talk about they and I'm doing air quotes, a lot of these manipulators do very well at tying up the float. So quite frequently, you can be looking at this manipulated stock and be like, it's the greatest short setup in the world, but it's impossible to borrow anywhere.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I feel like we've talked about the 250 rule. We've talked about how you can get set up short selling. Talked about.
We didn't talk about the 250 rule at all. You interrupted me, and I didn't even. They have no idea what the 250 rule is. So let me finish that before you move on. Let me finish. Why don't you take a couple more drinks while I actually explain this thing?
Okay, you talk about it.
So basically, the 250 rule is annoying for guys with small accounts, because even if it's a 50-cent stock, you have to have $2.50 of buying power to short that stock. What happened, this came into play, I can't remember exactly when, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it's basically because so many traders were blowing up shorting these 50-cent stocks. They would go into margin, they would take huge positions, and then when the stock spiked 20, 50, 100%, it would completely eliminate all their buying power, completely wipe out their account. So just know, as far as I know, every broker except for maybe some sketchy ones, you have to have $2.50 of buying power per share to short a stock less than $2.50. So it's confusing, I know, but if you're shorting $1 stock, say you're shorting 1,000 shares of a $1 stock, you need to have $2,500 worth of buying power. And they're doing that. It's annoying, I understand, but they're doing that basically trying to protect you from yourself. As much as I hate the PDT rule, the pattern day trader rule, and I think I think the pattern day trader rule almost does the opposite of what it's intended to do. The 250 rule kind of makes sense in my opinion. So.
I don't know. I mean, it basically completely eliminates trading or shorting sub-penny stocks, which I probably would never do anywhere in the first place. But it's also, for someone with a $5,000 or a $10,000 account, you can't really short any stocks with any real size. It really limits you, which means that you have to go long to build your account before you go short. And I mean, I would argue that the odds are on the short side in general. For any trader, the odds are on the short side. And this was said by Triforce Trader in the other episode as well. So it does have hindrances, but obviously it's beneficial in some ways as well. But if you're ready, if you feel like we've covered the 250 rule, I mean, I will leave it up. Do you want to expand or elaborate anything else on the 250 rule? Or?
Nope, I think I'm good.
You feel pretty good about it? Okay, let's move on to the next section. Okay, so now that we've kind of addressed some of the basics of shorting, I would say let's get into it. Let's get into shorting. Let's look at potentially taking our first kind of virtual trade. Not a virtual trade, but let's get a bit deeper under the skin of shorting. And the first thing that we kind of think about are, what are the dangers? And as you can possibly see, that's Austin Powers right there. You might know him from Oh Behave. You might know him from Get My Belly. He was Fat Bastard in one of the episodes. But he's like, I like to live dangerously, Vanessa. I like to live dangerously. But what I would say to you is, what are the dangers? I'll just jump out of this PowerPoint right now. Okay.
Well, the biggest thing with shorting is, and I kind of touched on it earlier, and then you pointed out that I didn't read your slide deck at all. The biggest danger of shorting is, and I'll reuse my analogy from earlier because I think it's applicable. If you have $1,000 in your account and you buy 1,000 shares of a $1 stock, which again, I would never recommend using all of your buying power. It's just a scenario, an example. The worst possible thing that can happen is that stock goes to zero. They declare bankruptcy. They have terrible news, whatever. So the worst possible scenario in a long situation, in that scenario, you lose $1,000. It hurts. It sucks. Nobody wants to be there. But shorting is completely different. So you have a margin account when you're short. So you cannot short sell without a margin account, which depending on your broker means they're going to give you 4-to-1, 2-to-1, 4-to-1, 6-to-1. I would
say most give 3, 4, 5-to-1. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So somewhere in that 3 to 6 range, depending on the broker. So now let's think about 4-to-1, because I think 4-to-1 is probably about the most common. So now you have, with your $1,000 account, you have $4,000 worth of buying power. You don't have $4,000 worth of cash. You've got $4,000 worth of buying power.
You get this on a long account as well.
Yep, true. Both. And agreed, but I'm just kind of giving the example that you can, quit interrupting me. Let me finish. So you now have $4,000 worth of buying power, which means if you short 1,000 shares of that $1 stock, it can go to $4,000 before your broker basically, and they may kick you out earlier. Quite frequently, they'll have risk management that'll get you out earlier. But sometimes if the stock moves too quickly, you may be down $3,000-$4,000 on a $1,000 account. And if that stock continues to spike, which in this day and age, a $1 stock going to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 is not atypical anymore. So now your broker takes you out at max margin. As that stock continues to rocket to 5 or 6 or wherever it goes, you're done. You now owe your broker $3,000-$4,000. And if you've got more buying power, say you've got $25,000 worth of buying power, and that stock does a KBIO or a DRYs or an Elfin or any of these other parabolic stocks, you could end up owing your broker tens of thousands of dollars because you got squeezed out of that stock before you could buy it back. So it's a double-edged sword. The idea is you have unlimited potential losses up to your margin. Now, one thing I actually like about that, and one thing I like about shorting, is the danger. Going back to Austin Powers, he says, I like to live dangerously. I mean, I always say one of the great things about shorting is if you get stubborn, if you get bullheaded, bad things happen. And we've all been there. I've been there many a time. And the nice thing is when that stock starts going against you, if you're an experienced short seller, I gotta get out because I have that unlimited risk at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's a good point. But one of the things that you've always said to me, and I know I'm short biased, so I'm kind of defending the short side. You're on the danger side, and I shouldn't be. I should probably listen to you a little bit more. But you should always be able to control your losses, and that's the long side as well as the short side. Like you decide what you lose in any given trade, and And then that kind of comes down to psychology, and that's a whole other kind of a podcast episode.
Well, and that's why, and I'm sure we'll get to some of your favorite setups. That's the beauty of your favorite setup is you short into resistance on the chart. And the beauty of that is, I mean, if you're shorting a stock with resistance at $3, and that stock goes to 310 and you don't stop out, you're doomed. So it's nice. It's nice that it gives you a very clear stop out with that scenario that you talk about. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You move on.
But in certain stocks that you don't have that clear stop out, which we'll get to in a moment. But let's just skip on to the next part of the presentation. We've kind of gone on what are the dangers. Next, we'll just quickly talk about how can we kind of avoid the dangers. So let me pick that up.
This ends part 1 of Jonk's Guide to Short Selling. Part 2 will pick up from here.
Hi, this is Latrina from Frederick, Maryland, and I like to clean my kitchen while listening to Stephen and Tim on the Steady Trade podcast. You can register to win prizes at their website, SteadyTrade.com. And if you really like what you hear, give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes. I did. And this is how we say goodbye in Frederick, Maryland.